think we just need to click this once. I've only got one slide. So, and I think I'm standing here between me and the after party, right? So I'm going to have to be somewhat engaging. So yeah, so last time I was here, I talked about vulnerability, authentic leadership, some of this ooey gooey stuff in leadership. And, you know, in tech, I think there is a human side that we do need to talk about, right? And so today, I think, you know, the really nice segue from the last time I spoke a couple of years ago is this topic of humility. Take the high road. What does that mean? Right? So if you think about what's, you know, the definition of humility, I looked it up, lots of definitions, but the one I really liked was it's a modest view of one's importance, right? And so, you know, we all believe we're important, and that's not a bad thing. But in the context of leadership or working with others, I want to give you some examples that I think have really helped shape my life and my career. And also, you know, really, and by experiencing these acts of humility, there have been some really good outcomes as well. So I think, you know, that's really the positive side of the stories I'm going to tell. So the first one I'm going to start with is I'm from India. I was born there, and we moved here when I was 7, and we moved to Prince Edward Island. Uh, someone here from PEI, yeah, Josh? Okay, great. You know, and I went to a single-room schoolhouse back in the 70s. So, you know, I joke that I'm Dawn of Green Gables, actually, but I'm not. I wasn't bullied, which is amazing. You know, PEI in the 70s, the only brown kid in the school. But that was great. So anyway, so that was PEI, but the story's not about me. It's about my father. So in India, my dad was one of 10 kids born of 3 mothers, 10 kids in the family. My dad was the eldest son in the family. And, you know, the story I want to tell you is my dad decided that he was going to stay home and help the family so his siblings, his younger siblings, could go to school and get an education. And actually, the outcome of that is I wouldn't be standing here if my dad hadn't done that, because that is an act of humility, right? And the reason why is his younger brother got a degree in education and became a teacher and immigrated to Canada back in the Trudeau-mania days when they were looking for teachers and nurses. And we were able to get sponsored by my dad's brother, who was educated because my dad stayed home to help the family. So that's one example of humility that, you know, it's close to me. And I think, you know, my dad has certainly taught us in our family those values. Moving on to the sort of the professional context of tech, the last company that I co-founded, as Alex mentioned, Vena Solutions. There's some Venanites here as well. I see you. Yes, hi everybody from Vena. There's 500 of you now in Toronto. The company has grown immensely. We started the company 8 years ago. I recently stepped down because I felt that it was getting too big for me, and someone else was going to take it to the next level, and that's what they're doing. The company's still growing at 50% year over year, and it's doing very well. But what I learned at Vena was that there were 3 co-founders, myself, George, and Rishi, and I told the story last time, so I'm going to abbreviate it now. Very quickly, the 3 founders had different skills. My background is sales. George is a technical person. Rishi is more of a product person. We learned early on that we weren't strong in everything as leaders, so we gave way to each other where we recognized our weaknesses and let other people, in this case, the 3 founders, run different parts of the business. You know, and I think about it retrospectively, and I think that is a little bit of an act of humility in terms of the group humility. It's not just about an individual, but we together thought, hey, let others do things that they're good at. What did we learn from that experience? That learning experience is that when you know what your weaknesses are, that gives you an opportunity to improve in areas where you can improve, right? So I think that was an amazing thing. More recently, as executive chairman of Fluence Technologies, Fluence team's up there. Hi, Fluence guys. You know, what we got here is a new company, a startup, that's in the same space as Vena, but not competitive. We're complementary. And we started a new business. And the founding team of this business is made up of 3 ex-CEOs. So myself, John, up there, hey John, and Leon, another CEO. The 3 of us are starting this business, but again, what we joke about this is we have 3 CEOs with no EGOs. And again, it's about team humility. How do we, you know, the 3 of us could all be CEOs or lead this company and every day be in your face, you know, in a sense, in terms of leaders, or, you know, certainly from a CEO standpoint, we could be that, but we've chosen again, what are, you know, to look at our strengths. John, product leader, amazing product leader, 20 years, 10 plus years as a CEO. Another great individual act of humility, John, is John was buying IKEA furniture the other day, and he's helping assemble it for our new office. So amazing, right? That's another example of that. And then just a few other quick examples. I'm not sure how much time I have, but I'm also the founder of a golf club in Ontario called the Wildfire Golf Club, and it's up in the Kawarthas. And you know, when you build anything as a developer, there's usually an opposition group, okay, or many groups that oppose the development. In this case, you know, when you're building a golf course, you have to be mindful of the environment, and there are groups that want to safeguard that. So we could have easily, like most developers try to do, steamroll the project through. But you know, something we learned in that project experience was, rather than do that, why don't we form a citizens advisory committee with all the stakeholders of that development project? And that's what we did. And you know what? We were able to get approvals and build a golf course, albeit we made some compromises on the design to ensure that we weren't going to impact the environment and so forth. So there's another example of really, you know, group humility in a sense, right? So the lesson here is, I think, for all of you young, you know, founders, leaders, entrepreneurs, is that, you know, business, you learn, you know, you go to business school and you learn that business, you know, you need to be tough, right? It has to be a win-lose scenario. You need to win every time. But the reality is that, you know, what I've personally experienced is that you can be humble, and, you know, humility is also a great path to great outcomes. And I think that's the human side of what really I wanted to share with you tonight. Thank you.
Last questions of the night?
Turn around. Oh, I'm the guy over here. Hi.
Hello. The malware guy. Okay.
Yes,
You didn't
yes.
start malware, by the way. Go ahead.
It was interesting. You're a great speaker, by the way. How does one find a president to run a multi-billion-dollar company?
A president
Yes.
to run one?
The
Well,
technology manufacturing environment.
that's a good question. Well, unless you know, if you've got a great network, you probably want to, you know, go through some sort of a recruiting firm. But however, in terms of skills and people that what you're looking for, is that what your question is? Okay.
2 to 4 years, I will have a multi-billion-dollar company manufacturing malware to computer systems in Canada. I don't have the skills to run a multi-billion-dollar company.
Okay.
Only 50 to 100 million I can run.
Okay. Okay. Can I give you another piece of advice for that? I would your first hire should be a salesperson. That's not a president. Because
I'm in the process of writing a book, Basic Sales for the New Entrepreneur.
awesome, because that's what we did. The last 2 startups that we've had, in fact, he's sitting right up there, employee number 1, for the last 2 companies that we've started has been in sales. In fact, the first company was a business development rep. If you don't have leads, you don't get sales. And if you don't get sales, you're not in business. And that's why 98% of companies fail.
Okay, right here. Hi. Thanks for the presentation. So I love the part where you said that you're 3 CEOs, no EGOs. I think this is something that that is quite important for people. So my question is that usually when we think of startups, we think of, if you're not 25 years and less, most probably you're not going to succeed. You're out. People are not going to hear you. You're competing with people that are a bit more out there, energetic. So how are you, and no offense for anything, but how are you there with startups that are 25 years of age as the founders and standing on stage and you're speaking there with your own experience? How is the competition? How do people accept you on stage if you're asking for funding, for example?
Sure. So you're saying age. I think, look, tenure of a team can help when you're raising money, right? Because one of the things that when you're in a startup, because your early days, you've just developed a product, you may not have any customers, you might have some, but the team is important. I would say more important than age, though, is demonstrating skills that hopefully are complementary across the team. So in other words, if you have 3 product developers that are 25 years old, that might be more difficult than if you have 3 of you, one who has sales experience, one who has product experience or marketing, and one who has sales or something. Do you know what I mean? More of a complementary fit in terms of the founders. So that would be one thing. Beyond that, I think a lot of funding is based on market opportunity, right? It's not necessarily the team, but that's important. That's really the only thing I can think of right away. But you have to have some experience. What I've been preaching a little bit to new entrepreneurs is stick close to your knitting. Okay, so for example, someone told me they wanted to develop something for battling forest fires. My background is business to business software, and I'm like, I'm not going to be part of that. Do you know what I mean? So if you stick close to your knitting, then there's credibility that you'll have even if you're young. I think that could work.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Pat Lando,
One last question.
up here. And when I got into technology, there was no PCs, there was no internet. I got into it because I was an accountant and I had to do it. To answer the gentleman, I have a suggestion for Mr. Malware. I worked with Ted Rogers, when he was alive, and I managed one of his personal companies. And what Mr. Rogers did was he had a vision. And what he would do would have headhunters search for people that he would hire a year, 2 years, 3 years. He knew where they were and knew how to contact them. So I would recommend that to that gentleman. By the way, I had to bring, when I decided to go into computer, with the Canadian government and Indian government, I had to bring my programmers from India.
Cool, thank you. By the way, just a little note on Ted Rogers. His business card was chief salesperson as well. So there you go. It's a good way to end it. Thank you.